Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Jim Lee. He's a financial futurist at StratFi, where he has 30 years experience. He is the author of the book Foresight Investing, a complete guide to finding your next great trade. I have Lisa McDonald. She's the founder of Career Polish, where she is an executive coach and master mindset coach who helps people get career happy and life healthy. And I have Atif Agha. He's a technology specialist doing data analytics and an avid runner. The question I have, what is the difference between having good judgment and being judgmental? Lisa, could you kick us off?
I think what I like about your question is the duality of it. When I think about having good judgment, that's an internal process. I'm internally processing external factors. And on the other hand, being judgmental is externally processing internal factors. It's very celebrated on social media to be judgmental. So it's easy, it's quick, it's easy, it's almost thoughtless, where the opposite in being judgmental is deliberate, it's intentional, it takes thought. So that's kind of the difference that I see is that they're almost opposites.
Yeah. At a high level, to me, it looks really like about the intention. Are you being judgmental? Because what is your intention? Right? If you are really providing a good feedback to help someone, that's great. That's useful information. If it hurts and it's not really helping, that's being judgmental. Lisa, you talked a little bit about the social media. That's really become an open space for judging anybody too quickly without providing enough details. Almost become a game for everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's really about the emotional charge. It's about how you think to a certain degree relative to how you feel. You know, judging is more about thinking. Being judgmental is almost about feeling. If you're sort of questioning where you are in that spectrum, you sort of have to feel how you feel about your thoughts. And the emotion that comes up, I think, with judgmentalism primarily is contempt. And if you're feeling that, yeah, you're probably being judgmental.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, having good judgment is about gathering information, understanding the situation, and making a decision, to your point, Lisa, that's internal to me. What do I want to do with this information? Whereas being judgmental is, let me just tell you how wrong you are.
And going back to the social media, and I think this is why it kind of sticks with me. I came across an article the other day where there was someone absolutely bashing and being very judgmental the way that another woman was dressing. And it's, oh, she's arm candy, and just absolutely bashed her, being extremely critical and judgmental. On the other hand, she looks no different than a family of women that is in the news all the time and did not dress any worse or any different than they do, but they're celebrated. So when I see that kind of judgment, one, it's very upsetting to think that, okay, we're just tearing people down just for the sake of clicks and likes and views. But the second thing is, it makes me pause and wonder why. If I find myself judging somebody, I have to take a step back and say, okay, what am I feeling inside that I'm reflecting on them? Is it something that I'm jealous of? Is there something that I feel a weakness? Imposter syndrome is covered a lot by being judgmental.
Having good judgment is really comes from experience, being able to make the right decision as what is my gut feeling. And that again comes from experience, observations, and lifetime learning. But being judgmental is very quick. It's an external emotion that you are really passing on to someone in terms of your opinion, which may or may not be valid and may not be intended for the right reasons. I think the key thing is about being judgmental is in some ways, if you look at the other side of it, we do want to promote dialogue. We do want to promote discussions. And unfortunately, it starts with people storming out first, whatever they feel, before they start stabilizing and start thinking is how to really be acceptable of other people. So the flip side of it, where people are not allowed to say what they think, what they feel, and then all of a sudden we have this environment where we don't have freedom of speech.
Jim, you had said, and Atif, you said it again, the word emotion. And I feel like when we're talking about being judgmental, there's a lot of negative emotions, the anger, frustration, disappointment, whatever negative emotions attached to being judgmental. I feel like having good judgment is more about thoughtfulness.
And you sort of think about it, judgment lends itself to conversation, kind of talking it through, working it out. Judgmentalism almost always leads to conflict and that emotional charge where you're not working with someone, you're working against them. And we tend to watch these things because we pay attention to things that are emotionally charged.
That's a good point. It does seem that a lot of what's on TV and the news is very judgmental and doesn't necessarily lead to information that allows for good judgment.
Yeah, that sells. That's the other problem. This gives us the quick rush, quick satisfaction. We love drama. We love seeing these things. And we tend to not look at the long-term disadvantages or advantages of any discussion that's going on and the sense of it. I mean, that's what I see in news media. It's just gone into a completely different direction. Like you said, being very judgmental.
We've talked really a lot about how they're very dichotomous to one another. Do you think that they can bleed into each other? Can you be having good judgment and have it turn into being judgmental? Or can anything positive ever come out of being judgmental that allows you to have good judgment? Do they go together at all?
I think a lot of time when people feel they have a good judgment and they're just trying to help someone, they may come out as being judgmental to that person. Parents being an example. Sometimes they think we know exactly what you need. Well, the kids may feel like my parents are very judgmental and they just don't allow me to do what I want to do. So that could go in a different direction too. Sometimes it's coming from a right intention, but really perceived incorrectly.
If you're on the receiving end, a judgment may feel judgmental, in part because you create that charge or in part because you may be judging yourself. So at that point, you sort of do have to look at that intention coming from the other person.
Lisa,
I think the word that everybody has used, and it really is the perfect word, is intention. You know, what is your intention in not only when you're saying something, but what's your intention in receiving that? You may feel like you're being judged, but if you take a step back and say, okay, but what is it they're trying to tell me? Are they judging me or are they trying to help me in some way? They're just not very good at communicating it.
that communication
So that's
is
where
key.
Positive. Yes. So that's where I think a positive can come out of it. If you can allow yourself to detach and ask, okay, what's the real meaning? And if this is a person that you know and you know isn't trying to be hurtful to you, it makes it easier.
I feel like someone comes to me and says, hey, I probably wouldn't do that way. Here's why, here's my thought behind it. And it's not, you're doing it wrong. Here's how you're supposed to do it. I think the way they communicate with me is whether I feel like they're having good discernment, good judgment, sharing good information with me, or just being judgmental. And it depends upon kind of that attitude. If they make me wrong, then I'm going to feel judged.
And I think in society, there's so much we need to learn how to be cognizant and mindful of other people, what to say in the right time, in the right way. There's so much gap in what people actually even pay attention to. There should be a dedicated foundational course for every graduate.
I do feel like it is one of those things that you would think we would get better at it with age, but it doesn't necessarily happen. I see people who I feel like you should be better at this. I don't understand. Because something I do with clients all the time is they may make decisions or do things that I may not agree with, but I don't get to judge whether it's right or wrong in their life, which is why I tell them you can't be too anything. You can't be too broken. You can't dream too big. You can't want too much, because that word too, T-O-O, requires judgment.
And I love how you said that is I don't have the right. And that goes back to what you were saying on social media. It's just so easy. You're anonymous, even if you put your name out there, but you can blast it. And it's so easy to just put something out there and have no repercussion. And so it's that ownership of, no, your words matter. Your actions matter.
You're allowed to have good judgment in your life. You're not allowed to be judgmental of other people's lives.
Sounds like a perfect
I
rule.
think that makes sense to me. That is our 10 minutes. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I look forward to speaking to each of you very soon, and thank you for not judging me.